I had 7 days to speedrun Dishonored and no clue what I was doing. 1 week ago, I couldn't even remember the controls, and today, I'm trying to break the game in half with double blinks, slip clips, and some of the weirdest tech that I had ever seen. This is Tutorial Percent, where I pick a new game, learn the speedrun in a week, and see how far I can push it. Last episode, we did Super Mario 64, and today, it is time for Dishonored. So, to pick the next game for the series, I made a Reddit post asking people what I should try speedrunning next. And that post kinda popped off. People were throwing all kinds of suggestions, and some really good ones, and some quite chaotic. But one comment stood out. This person, named xCandle, said, Dishonored is around 40 minutes game time, 25 minutes with our speed up mod, and it's super easy to get into. And I was like, wait, I actually played Dishonored back on my PS3 and I loved that game. So this instantly clicked. And here is the wild part. Candle didn't just suggest it, but Candle offered to actually help me get started. Turns out, Candle is not just some random person, but a mod in the Dishonored speedrun community. And even responsible for discovering some of the FPS glitches that we will talk about later. So, I ended up jumping on a Discord call, and no joke, Candle spent 4 hours walking me through the game and answering all of my questions, explaining the tech and helping me wrap my head around how this run works. To be honest, easily one of the nicest people I have met on this journey so far. Candle was super chill and super helpful. Oh, and Candle didn't just help me, but also shared a bunch of tips for anyone who is thinking about picking up Dishonored as a speedrunning game. I'll put the Q&A with Candle in the description down below, so check it out if you're even a little tempted to try this run yourself. So yeah, massive shout out to Candle and the Dishonored speedrunning community. After the call with Candle, I still had no idea what I was doing, but at least I knew what I was trying to do. For this run, I am going with the any percent speedrun. Basically, just beat the game as fast as possible using any and all tricks that are available. The world record right now is held by Long John Steven, sitting at a clean 30 minutes and 31 seconds, which is absolutely nuts. Anyway, let's dive into the stuff that Candle showed me to get started. If I wanted most of the cool glitches to actually work, I first had to downpatch the game. Currently the game runs on 1.4, which is the latest version, but a lot of the current route stuff was patched out in that version. So I had to roll back to version 1.2. Otherwise, you're basically speedrunning with one hand tied behind your back. After I got the game downpatched, Candle helped me set up live split for Dishonored, and it actually works a little different than what I was used to. Normally, I would hit a hotkey to split manually during a run, but not here. Dishonored uses auto splitting, which means live split watches for a certain in-game trigger, for example when a mission starts or ends, and then splits automatically. So yeah, no more button presses mid-run. The timer takes care of itself. Super clean. Candle then also showed me something else. The speed up mod. What it does is basically speed up a bunch of unskippable cutscenes, which is great, but it also speeds up the timer during those parts. So the final time ends up being totally fair. That means even though the world record is technically around 30 minutes, the real-time gameplay is actually closer to 22 minutes because of all these sped up cutscenes. Next up, there were a couple of bindings that Candle showed me to set up. First, we had jumping and interacting. It sounds pretty simple, but for Dishonored speedruns, it sometimes comes down to hitting those inputs in a very short time frame. So, Candle explained that most runners make use of a free scroll mouse wheel. With a free scroll mouse, I would be able to spam these inputs by just scrolling the mouse wheel. So, we bind the interact button to scrolling upwards and the jump button to scrolling downwards. Luckily, I had a free scroll mouse to begin with, but if you don't have one, the community actually designed a macro that is allowed to be used in the Dishonored runs that emulates using a free scroll mouse. Now, last but not least, I had to jump into the game's input config file to change a few lines manually. What this allowed me to do is bind different buttons on my keyboard to toggle the frame rate in-game. One key for 5 FPS, one for 60 FPS, and one for 250 FPS. And trust me, it sounds weird now, but once we get into the actual run, you will see why this is absolutely necessary. Now after this, there was just one thing left to do before I could actually start practicing. I had to buy a $2 DLC that spawns extra bone charms and money in Corvo's bedroom at the start of the game. Now this might sound like cheating, but is actually part of the route. It gives some extra cash to buy gear early, plus a power up for Blink, which is the ability that completely breaks the game in half. So yeah, everything was set now. The timer was ready, I downpatched the game, the FPS toggles were in place, and the DLC was bought. So now it was finally time to start learning this beast of a run. So, for day 1, Candle walked me through the main route of the run, just to get a feel for where we're going and why we're doing the things that we are doing. After what normally is a pretty long cutscene at the start, we jump right into the game as Corvo Atano, bodyguard of the Empress of Dunwall. Dunwall itself is a gritty, plague-ridden steampunk city, going through an industrial revolution thanks to whale oil. It is grim, it is moody, and it actually sets the tone perfectly for how broken this speedrun is gonna get. Now the plague has turned people into these zombie-like infected called the Weepers, and Corvo just returned from a mission trying to find a cure. That is where the game starts, and that is also where we start speedrunning. You are placed in this little boat, pulling up to the city, and we're not wasting any time. Straight after getting control of Corvo, it is actually allowed to make a save here. Loading that save then resets the timer to 0 and starts the new run. So if you ever feel like resetting, you can simply reload that save and you don't have to watch the intro cutscene again. It is actually right at the start of the game where Candle showed me one of the first big tricks. They are called elevators. Basically, if you approach a corner with a 90-degree angle and start walking into it at just the right angle and hold jump, you trick the game into thinking that the wall is something you can vault. And instead of saying, no, you cannot climb this, Dishonored goes, oh yeah, totally, right this way, and just moves you upwards like an elevator. So right at the start, I elevator straight up the wall before even crossing the bridge. This actually lets me skip an early cutscene with Emily, the Empress's daughter. Boom. First skip is done. And that was also when I realized that yes, this run is going to be wild. Next up, we are supposed to talk to this guy named Sokolov. He stops you for a little chat just before letting you move forward. But Candle showed me a cheeky little trick. If you press the interact button while jumping into his cutscene, you can already buffer the prompt to skip his dialogue. After that, we check in with the Empress. Classic, hey, I'm back from my mission type moment. When the game sets you up for what's supposed to be the first combat tutorial. A few assassins will blink into the scene to attack the Empress. And that's when most players get their first taste of how the action works in this game. But we are not most players. Instead of fightings, we walk into this specific corner and yeah, we hit another elevator. This puts me way above the map, where luckily there is still a floating collision box I can walk on. Dishonored's level design, everybody. Now this is actually quite funny. You can actually see the assassins spawn in way off in the distance. And there is a little timing to this. As soon as you see the second assassin blink away, we will walk forward and off the invisible platform to fall down. And this fall would normally kill Corvo. But as this fighting tutorial has a failsafe in place for if Corvo would lose, it will entirely skip the fight. So after falling down, we run into the next cutscene with our sweet Empress. We literally just reunited with her 2 seconds ago and now she absolutely gets punctured by a guy named Dodd. Now right in the cutscene where the Empress gets stabbed, if I hold the F key while in that cutscene and keep holding F until the next cutscene, it will actually store the input for holding F. This trick is what is called an AS, short for RE storage skip, named after the person who actually came up with this trick. What it does is it queues up the F input, so the very next cutscene gets skipped instantly without me having to press F again. It doesn't sound like that much, but it actually saves about a second. And in speedrunning, that adds up. So yeah, hold F to save time. Now story-wise, this section is pretty brutal, and it sets up the whole story for the game. Corvo gets blamed for the assassination and our boy is tossed in prison, stripped of his title and branded as a traitor. Which is honestly kind of perfect for a speedrun, because now we go from royal protector to blinking shadow wizard breaking the laws of physics in no time. So next up is the prison section, the part where Corvo gets tossed in a cell after being framed for the assassination. But lucky for us, someone mysterious drops a key with our prison food. Real subtle, right? Now in a normal playthrough, this is where you would sneak around, take out some guards, and maybe even read a few notes if you're feeling like you want to know the lore a bit. But we are not doing any of that. Candle showed me this trick where if you stand in front of this specific gate, look at a very precise spot in the textures, walk backwards and angle at a different spot on the gate, and then start spamming jump with the free scroll mouse. Boom! You clip right through the gate. Like it's not even there. And from there, we head into this corner, and you guessed it, it's another corner, so another elevator. And this one pops me right out of bounds. So I carefully make my way out of bounds, and once I get to this ledge, I jump down in the water. If you hold crouch while falling, you actually skip the landing animation in the water, which just saves a little time. And just like that, we are heading straight towards the next section, the sewers. At the start of sewers, and the moment we get control, I run over to this corner and I'll let you guess. Yes, we're doing another elevator to launch myself straight out of bounds again. Now this section was actually kinda tricky to learn at first. You're basically walking blind on invisible geometry and trusting your muscle memory and hoping that you don't fall into the void. But once I started memorizing where the collision boxes are, it got a lot easier down the line. So, we moved through pretty much the entire sewer section out of bounds, performing a couple of janky jumps and vaults to keep the route going. And then we get to this spot. And this is where we do our first FPS trick. We press the key that dropped the FPS down to 60. And look at this little black dot on the wall. We then crouch until we see the vault prompt appear on screen. But just getting the prompt isn't enough. To actually get the game to let me vault up this wall, I start free scrolling my jump input and then do a quick flick to the right with my mouse. If I've lined up all correctly, Corvo just magically climbs this big wall like a champ. And as soon as that's done, I crank the FPS back up to 250 and keep moving through this cursed geometry jungle. When I finally get to the end of this section, there is this final jump. I have to slide down the wall on the right side to hit the trigger that will actually spawn in an NPC, Samuel, the guy who shows up to rescue us. If you miss that trigger, you can actually walk back into the tunnel for a bit and trigger it manually. So after we've done that, Samuel pulls up, we hop into the boat, and just like that, the sewer section is completed. Turns out the whole reason we even had a way out of that prison was thanks to a group called the Loyalists. They slipped Corvo the key and set everything in motion. Now once we escape, we meet up with them. And then we get the full cast. There is Lord Pendleton, this broke kinda sad nobleman with family drama for days. Then you have Admiral Havelock, a disgraced military guy who's trying to restore order. And finally, Overseer Martin, basically a religious figure from the state church who is gone rogue. These people are working together to form a rebellion, and they want Corvo to be their personal assassin, tracking down leads, rescuing Emily, and helping her reclaim the throne. To do that, we are gonna need gear. So I meet with Piero Joplin, who is a slightly unhinged inventor who hooks me up with some weapons and gadgets. And for transport, we have Samuel, the old sailor who becomes our go-to guy for dropping into missions. Now after chatting with our rebellion buddies over at the Hound's Pit pub, the next stop is a quick conversation with Piero, our friendly neighborhood mad scientist. And just like before, I'm out here trying to skip as much as possible. So during these dialogue scenes, I pulled off a couple of more RE storage skips to slice right through the small talk. After this, Corvo heads to bed. And normally, you'd wake up in Corvo's room, walk outside of the building, and you will be in this spooky dream dimension known as the Void. But if I start spamming jumps with the free scroll mouse, right as the scene transitions from Piero's place to Corvo's bedroom, the game just drops me straight into the Void, skipping the walk entirely. It saves about 10 seconds, and that's where we meet the Outsider, the mysterious edgy dude who will give us Blink. We're gonna use this ability for pretty much the rest of the run to go very fast and very out of bounds. Now in the Void there is a whole mini course that is meant to help you get used to Blink. In the course we grab a couple of mana potions along the way as they are needed to use Blink. And at the end of this very section we pick up a rune, which in this game acts kinda like a skill point. You can use runes to upgrade powers like Blink or put points into stuff like Agility, which boosts movement speed and gives us double jump later on. Now after all of that, Corvo wakes up in bed again, but now he has a weird tattoo on his hand, courtesy of the Outsider. Magic has now been unlocked. And this is also where the $2 DLC that we bought earlier kicks in, because now we can grab a bone charm right in Corvo's bedroom that buffs Blink and 4 coin purses totaling up to 2000 gold. So, right after picking those up, I blink out of the window and land right next to Piero, who is now open for business. And here's the shopping list for the entire rest of the run. We purchase 1 rune, 10 mana potions, 3 grenades, 5 spring razors and some bullets. After shopping, I spent my runes to upgrade agility and equip the bone charm for the blink buff. And with that, we are geared up and ready to roll into the first real mission of the run. Time to cause some chaos. Alright, so for the first real mission of the run, the Loyalist wants me to take out High Overseer Campo, who is basically the guy running the corrupt religious police. And yeah, sure, I could find my way into his office like a normal player, but this is a speedrun, so here is what I actually do. First, Samuel drops us off in the distillery district. Here, we do a series of blinks to climb over the wall entirely. We then blink right over this electric fence, which would normally just fry us if we walk through it. On the way, I also grab some mana potions and a rune. In the next map, I do a series of blinks to climb up on this high ledge, then a couple of more quick teleports to finally land inside of the building. Once I'm in, I grab another mana potion, and then it's time for a new trick, something that is called a slip clip. Now a slip clip is a glitch in Dishonored that lets you blink through walls. You sprint, lean into a wall and flick your camera just right. Depending on how high your FPS is at this point, you can actually catch a couple of frames where the game shows you the other side of the door or wall. Now if you release blink on those same frames, you can actually blink straight through it. It is tricky to learn at first, but it is super useful. There are various versions of this trick too, depending on the wall or the angle that you need to take. Some even involve getting stuck and needing a quick save to fix it. But once you get it down, it is actually one of the most satisfying movement techs in the run. So yeah, by slip clipping past this door, we can skip all the nonsense and toss a spring razor at Campbell to take him out instantly. We then have to collect the blackmail journal off of his body, and the tricky part here is not to pick up his sword, because if we do, we lose about 20% movement speed. Now once that is done, we slip clip back into the previous room and grab the rune above the fireplace. Now we are supposed to go all the way back through the building, but surprise, we are not doing that. Instead, we just hit another slip clip right in the hallways to get out of bounds, and then blink our way to the exit door. Normally, if you just blink to it, you would fall to your death. So instead, I use my free scroll mouse again to spam the interact button mid-air, and then the second the game lets me, I open the door while falling and exit the building that way. Super clean when it works, and yeah, this also took me a bunch of tries to get it, especially on this first day. Now, it was just a matter of blinking across the rooftops and heading back to our trusty boat guy, Samuel, who will take us back to the Hound's pub. Now back at the Hound pits, we squeeze in another S to fast forward through the convo with Pendleton and Havelock. After that, it's bedtime again, and when we wake up, we jump straight into the next segment, Weepers. Right after waking up and getting out of bed, I blink out of the window like usual, head through the pub and make my way down into the sewer section. Now here's the thing. This sewer door is supposed to stay locked from this side, because the key is actually hanging inside the sewer, meant to be grabbed from the other side. But instead, I can crouch, lean left, and spam the interact button at just the right spot, and boom, we grab the key through the wall and open the door anyway. Now we blink further into the sewers, and if I was fast enough here, I can toss a spring razor at 2 Weepers bundled together, taking them out both in one go. Now if I'm late here, they will wander off and that double kill is off the table. Also, I grab a total of 2 more runes here and drop a point into agility. I then crawl through the tunnel to head back up to the pub. Once I'm back, I talk to Havelock, skip the cutscene, and then we head back to Samuel for our next mission. It is now time for the Golden Cat mission. Samuel drops us off at the distillery district again, so we start out with pretty much the same movement as last time. But this time, instead of going left towards the Overseer HQ, we take a hard right and head straight into the next section of the city. Here, I hit 2 quick blinks to reach a balcony, grab the rune tucked away here, and then hop out of the nearby window and blink up to this other window. And this is where we will find Emily tucked away in a room. She has been locked up inside the Golden Cat brothel, hidden away in a small room, scared and alone. This whole mission is about reaching her, since she is the rightful heir to the throne and the Loyalist's best shot at restoring the order in Dunwall. In the normal game, you would sneak your way in, eavesdrop and maybe eliminate a few targets. But in this run, we beeline straight to her, completely bypassing most of this level. Emily is safe and now it is time to get out. But before we leave, there is still a bit of unfinished business. We actually have 2 targets to take out, the Pendleton twins. Yep, remember the same Pendleton back at the pub? These are his brothers. Not exactly the family reunion you'd hoped for. They're high-ranking scumbags running things behind the scene at the Golden Cat. and taking them out helps the loyalists earn Pendleton's trust. So yeah, it is personal. Now, instead of sneaking through the brothel like a normal player, I just slip-clip straight into the building. Now here is where Candle warned me. This part is one of the hardest segments of the entire run to learn. Once we're out of bounds between the walls of the Golden Cat, we actually have to pay attention to a really important visual cue, these red lights. Depending on whether they are on or off, we can tell if we got good RNG or bad RNG for the Pendleton twins locations. If the lights are on, that means one of the brothers spawns in the ideal spot. So that's good RNG. We slip-clip past the second wall, head towards the door beneath the lit-up room, and line up a precise grenade toss by aiming at this specific spot on the ceiling. And if I did it right, boom, that's one brother down. I then blink down the middle hallway, cut through this door, and toss a spring razor to cleanly take out the second brother. From here, it's just about getting out. I grab a few mana potions along the way, snag a rune, grab the exit key off of a nearby lady, and then crack open a supply locker for even more potion. And then we blink down the stairs to find Emily again. Now here is a little trick too. If Emily is not facing you, you can bump into her just slightly to nudge her into position. Now once she settles back into place, the mission then will update, and we are good to go. Now if the lights are not on, this means we got the less favorable RNG. One of the brothers is now actually in the bathhouse, which makes things a little trickier. Still, not a big problem though. From the out of bounds sections between the walls of the Golden Cat, I head into this specific corner that will drop me lower, still out of bounds. And from here, I can line up my aim between these two poles and toss a grenade right through that gap. If I did that correctly, it will drop right into the bathhouse room and blow up the first brother. Then I aim a blink at the ceiling to clip myself back in bounds. Blink back up, head to the second brother's room and spring razor him like usual. From there, the route is actually the same. We grab whatever mana potions or loot we can get along the way and make our way back to Emily. Now the loot we picked up is just enough to upgrade our blink to level 2. Now it's just a matter of blinking my way back to the boat where Samuel and Emily are already waiting for me. Weirdly enough, no matter how fast I go, Emily is always there first. Like, seriously, the girl teleports or something. Back at the Hound's Pits, we check in with Pendleton, and then get our next assignment from Havelock and Martin. And then it's right back to Samuel to kick off the next mission, Caldwin's Bridge. The start of this one is actually pretty straightforward. We blink up to the first ledge, grab a rune from the guard booth, and then do a slip clip through the nearby door. After that, I wait a second for my mana to recharge, blink again, and on to the next area. Now we are approaching the bridge itself. Here, again, it's a series of well-timed blinks that takes us up the railing of the bridge and then around the side of the bridge. Now once you reach the main bridge, I blink towards the drawbridge spotlights, open the door and toss a grenade inside to disable them completely. Which brings us to the next big movement challenge. A trick that actually took a while to get consistent, the double blink. The trick behind double blinking is all about timing. You gotta hit the first blink super early, basically right as the second part of the double jump kicks in. That way, while you're falling, there is just enough time to squeeze in a second blink. Now the tricky part here is that even if your angle is a little bit off, you either don't make the height or eat fall damage. Or the worst case, you will just die. But if you nail it, you'll land smooth and go straight on to the next section like it is nothing. The trick takes a while to get first, but once you get the hang of it, it is actually pretty neat. Now the next section is one of the most satisfying blink chains in the whole run. You're zipping your way up and around rooftops, chaining smooth blinks until you finally reach the top of the building. This is where Sokolov is holed up. Now Sokolov is the royal physician, and yeah, he has been conducting some pretty grim experiments on plague victims. But to be fair, it wasn't just mad science or greed. He was trying to find a cure for the red plague that has been devastating Dunwall. And the stakes were massive. If the plague spread beyond Dunwall, it could wipe out all of Bristol, maybe even the entire Isles. So he wasn't exactly a villain, but he wasn't the same either. Anyway, in the run we just choke him out cold, scoop him up and blink our way down into the sewers where Samuel will be waiting with the boat. Back at the Hound Pits, we wake up in our bed and at this time Emily is waking us up. After a quick chat with her, we make our way over to the building where Sokolov is now being held prisoner. Sokolov has crucial information about one of the people funding the Lord Regent, a powerful ally named Lady Boyle. She is hosting a lavish masquerade ball tonight, and she is one of 3 sisters. So we have to figure out which one of these 3 to eliminate. Now here we can skip a chunk of Sokolov's cutscene using an ass again. Then we head over to the back wall of the building, slip clip through the wall and blink our way back to Samuel's boat. And right here at Samuel's boat, we get to pull off another neat FPS trick. And fun fact, this one was actually found by Candle. So here is how it works. You talk to Samuel like normal and accept the mission to head into Boiler State. But just as you accept, you drop your FPS down to 5 and start spamming quicksave until your cursor shows up. If you then crank your FPS back up to 250 and wait to transition to the next scene. Once the loading icon now pops up in the bottom corner of the screen, we can go back into the menu and hit load game. We then select the latest autosave that the game just made. And weirdly enough, when the level loads back in, boom, we are already in position at Boiler State. No boat ride, no cutscene, and no time wasted. This trick alone saves like 30 seconds, which is huge in this run. Unfortunately, however, that FPS trick I just talked about, yeah, turns out it is kinda hardware dependent. Or maybe it just hates me personally. Out of the 70 attempts that I tried, I got it to work twice. Some people say it even only works if your save slots are full. Tried that, but that also didn't help. Even Candle wasn't sure why it wasn't cooperating with my PC. So I ditched that trick and took the normal route instead. RIP 30 seconds. Now starting off this mission, we do a couple of blinks over the fence at Boiler State. We then hand off the invitation to Shaw and blink up to head inside. Normally, the game will now give us a randomized target for this mission, but the speedrunning community actually agreed on a mod that removes the RNG, so it always picks the same Boyle sister for consistency. Lucky for us, she is right there to the left of the staircase. We take her out with a spring razor, but we also have to read a note that will actually tell us who the target was. And to do that, we blink up to the ledge above in the previous room, lean into the wall, and use our free scroll trick to interact with the ladder through the wall. Saves a bit of time. We then grab a mana potion from the chest in the middle of the room, blink out through the same route and head straight back to Samuel. And this was actually where my day 1 came to an end. I called it for the night because I had plans to watch the Summer Game Fest with some friends. And funny enough, Candle was about to do the same. It felt like a good stopping point. I had the intro, the early missions and most of the major tricks down. Tomorrow was when I had to dive into the rest of the run and really start piecing it all together. Now for day 2, I figured I'd give Candle a break. I didn't want to keep bugging with every little question, so I decided to go solo for a bit and start digging through YouTube tutorials. That is also when I stumbled across a run breakdown by Lurven, actually one of the top runners in the community. The video itself was super well made, it had clear commentary, and it actually walked me through the entire any percent route. It gave me some confidence, like, okay, maybe I got most of this figured out and the final bits don't seem too hard. But yeah, I was wrong again. There was one part coming up that absolutely kicked my ass. So after the Boiler State, we head back to the Hound Pits pub. The vibe here has changed. The loyalists are looking more tense than ever, and when we talk to Pendleton and afterwards head over to Martin and Havelock, we get the new mission briefing. It is now time. They tell me that the final target is the Lord Regent himself, the man who framed me, seized the throne and basically let the whole city rot. He is now holed up in Dunwall Tower, heavily guarded, paranoid, and dangerous. And this mission, yeah, this was the one. It turned out to be way harder than I expected. Definitely one of those segments that I had to grind over for the next couple of days. We start off this section by blinking straight off of Samuel's boat and doing a quick elevator up to the rooftop. From here we do a series of tight blinks and grab a couple of mana potions along the way. We then sneak into the ground floor of Dunwall Tower. Once inside, we shoot the glass window of this nearby door, not to break in but to bait the guards. This actually triggers the quest to update. Assassinate the Lord Regent at the top part of the building. So now it is time to head out again. When we're outside, we turn around, blink to the narrow ledge and elevator all the way up to the top of the tower. Probably one of the cleanest elevators in the whole run if you get it right. And now comes one of the most stylish tricks of this mission. Right in front of the Lord Regent's chamber, there is a very specific white dot in the door's texture. We can now line up a grenade toss, open the door, and if your timing is clean, it lands directly on the guy. The nade dinks him once and then explodes. This will now guarantee the kill. With no time to celebrate, we spin around and perform a carefully angled blink back down to the tower. Then a couple of more blinks back to Samuel and boom. we are out of here. Now back at the Hound Pit's pub, things are starting to feel off. The loyalists welcome me back, but it's weirdly quiet. Fewer people around and the mood is tense. I talk to Havelock, Martin and Pendleton. They congratulate me on taking out the Lord Regent, say the city is in chaos and that Emily will be crowned Empress soon. But you can feel it in the air. Something is not right. They offer me a drink to celebrate, a toast, and they say, "You have done it, Corvo." So I take the drink and as soon as I reach my room, we fade to black. And then I wake up, dump in the corpse cart, my gear gone, betrayed by the very people that I helped. Turns out they never planned to share the throne. Once I was no longer useful, they handed me over to be executed. But they should have known better. You cannot kill the guy who just blinked through half of the empire. Now during all of these cutscenes, we once again use the good old ass technique, the RE storage skip, to speed things up. After all of these cutscenes, it is on to the next segment, that is called Flooded. We wake up in a septic tank, and we need to slip clip our way out. But this time, it is a jump slip clip, meaning that I have to time a jump, flick the camera and time my blink input just right. Honestly, this one took a while to get down, and it's definitely one of the harder ones to learn. Once I'm out of the tank, I grab a few potions and climb my way up to the top of the building. Then it's a slick double blink across the rooftops to reach the next section, where I snag a key and move on. From here, I slip clip through a wall and into an out of bounds water body. And here's the sketchy part. The water has a hitbox that just ends a couple feet under us. If I move too far down, I will fall to my death. So it is a careful balance to stay afloat while blinking to the next sewer section. After this, it is a clean series of blinks straight to the door that leads to the next map. Now in this area, I turn around right away and slip clip through the door that we just came from. That puts me out of bounds again, and this time I drop directly into a river stream that runs through this level. And here's the fun fact. How fast that the river moves you is tied to your FPS. The lower the frame rate, the faster it will carry you. So yeah, I slam my FPS down to 5 and boom, it instantly launches me straight across the section like I'm speedboating. Once on the other side, I carefully crouch under a pile of rubble and blink my way back inbounds for the next segment in the run. This next section is called Loyalists, and honestly, it flies by pretty quick. I jump up the staircase, grab a mana potion on the way, and head back towards the all too familiar Hound Pit pub. I grab a note that confirms what I already suspected. The loyalists have indeed betrayed me. Havelock, Pendleton and Martin used me to do all their dirty work, and now have taken Emily and vanished to King Sparrow Island to crown her. From here, we blink up to what used to be Emily's room, and slip clip through the door. We then fire off a flare signal for Samuel. Of course he shows up like the old loyal sea dog that he is. I blink down to him just as he pulls up. And now, it is time for the final mission, King Sparrow. At this point in the game, the political situation is in chaos. The Red Plague has devastated Dunwall and the people are desperate. And power is simply up for grabs. The loyalists think that they can secure the throne by controlling Emily. But what they didn't count on was Corvo actually surviving. So King Sparrow actually isn't too difficult when it comes to the route itself. We just blink our way upwards to the main tower, and along the way I have to land one more double blink. But when we get to the elevator and ride it up, here's where things get a bit more tricky. I have to blink up to the outside of the tower and pull off what I experienced as probably the hardest slip clip in the entire run. The first one gets us between the outer tower walls. Not too bad. But the second slip clip you do here, this one is brutal. The wall here is thick and the angle is weird. It just takes the right setup to work. And honestly, it is not impossible, but the pressure at this point in the run makes it feel worse. Like, if I'm on a good time, I'm sweating profoundly. Now once we land both of those clips and make it inside the tower, it's basically the endgame. We blink right up to Havelock, grab the key to Emily's room, and from there... Wait, why do we let Havelock live? Well, because it's faster. So we grab the key, open the door to Emily, and the timer stops. The run is done. Having learned that final stretch of the run, it was officially time to call it a night. My brain was cooked at this point and my hands were kinda sore, and honestly, I was kinda hyped because I knew tomorrow it was time to go for full runs. No more segmented practice. Just me, the timer, and figuring out where everything would fall apart first. Day 3 started off pretty strong. On this day, I knew that I did not have that much time to play, but I was actually starting to chain together runs. And for a while, things were looking quite smooth. That is, until I hit the tower segment. This is where the run fell apart every single time. That elevator climb up the tower, yeah, it was kind of a hell. You're getting shot at this whole time, and if you mess up even a little, you get knocked into the water and have to reload your save just to reset, which ironically was faster than swimming out. But then came the next headache. No matter how many times I tried, I could not land the grenade kill on the Lord Regent. I knew the lineup, I knew the dot on the door frame, but the grenade would just whiff or bounce wrong. I had no clue what I was doing wrong. So I stopped running and went full lab mode for a solid hour, just grinding out that one moment over and over. Turns out, lowering my graphics settings actually helped a ton. Suddenly the visual cues lined up better, and once I locked in the muscle memory, it finally clicked. Now day 3 wasn't exactly a clean grind, but I came out knowing that tower segment inside and out. And at the end of day 3, I managed to complete my first full run, clocking in at 1 hour and 21 minutes. I then wrote Candle a message and asked what would be possible in terms of time for a 1-week challenge. The answer I got was that a sub 40 should be possible with enough practice. So that was now my goal, complete a sub 40 run within a week. And tomorrow, I knew for a fact that I was going to shave off a lot of time. Now day 4 was full on grind mode. Run after run after run. Just trying to get that time lower and lower. And it worked. The very first run of the day was 58 minutes and 23 seconds. It was a huge improvement. Now, classic key moment, I did forget to turn on the live split for that recording, so you won't see the timer in the footage. But that didn't really matter because I could go back to the footage and rewatch it and start breaking down all of the weak points in this run. And there were plenty. I died in the sewer section, which meant that I had to run the whole thing back again. For Campbell's assassination, the slip clips didn't work instantly and it was kind of sloppy overall. For Golden Cat, that was way slower than I usually did. For the Caldwin's Bridge section, I botched up the double brink a few times and I actually fell to my death, so I actually had to reload the quick saves. Then came the tower grenade. It took me 5 tries to hit that lineup, which was brutal. And then for some reason in Flooded, I kept falling through the out of bounds water segment. So yeah, I shifted gears once again. I stopped running and spent the rest of the day practicing those segments one by one, just isolating the problem areas and hammering them out. One thing I figured out during practice was that in the Flooded section, I needed to aim my blink way higher than I had been doing. That small adjustment kept me safely in the water instead of falling out of bounds to my death, which had been happening a bit too much for comfort. So with that cleaned up and the rest of the trouble spots practiced to death, I called it a night. Tomorrow the goal was simple, drastically lower my time, and trust me, that was about to happen. Now day 5 was all about one thing. Grinding out cleaner runs and finally lowering my time. And yeah, practice plus a solid night of sleep definitely paid off. The intro flew by, super smooth, landing at 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Then came Prison and Sewers. There were no hiccups. The total time so far was 6 minutes and 43 seconds. The Void segment was a little crappy but still decent, clocking in at 10 minutes and 48 seconds. Campbell's mission had a few sloppy jumps and awkward clips, but nothing disastrous. 13 minutes and 34 seconds. Then came Weepers, 15 minutes and 28 seconds, followed by the Golden Cat where RNG said nope. I had to go with the grenade toss, got it on my second try but struggled to getting back inbounds. Still, we finished that segment at 19 minutes and 8 seconds. For Caldwin's Bridge, it was surprisingly smooth. I nailed the double blink, grabbed Sokolov and cruised back to Samro. 23 minutes and 43 seconds on the clock. Boiler State wrapped up at 27 minutes and 39 seconds. And then the tower. Oh boy. Missed the elevator a couple of times, but the granite toss hit first try. I moved my way back to Samuel and ended tower at 31 minutes and 49 seconds. Now the Flooded section went surprisingly well. I nailed the tricky slip clip on the first try and coasted through 37 minutes and 41 seconds total. At this point I'm asking myself, is this actually going to be a sub 40 on day 5? For loyalists, just like I practiced, it was clean and steady, and by the end of it I was sitting at 38 minutes and 45 seconds. There was only one mission left, King Sparrow. And yeah, I missed the double blink twice. Lost a good chunk of time, but once I got up I recovered pretty well. I rode the elevator, hit the hard slip clip and made my way to Emily. And the final time, 41 minutes and 29 seconds. Unfortunately, no sub 40 today, but still a solid PB. And I knew exactly where I could clean it up. So later that day, I squeezed in 2 more runs. One run landed at 46 minutes and 19 seconds and the other at 43 minutes and 36 seconds. Not quite what I was hoping for, but still decent and around the 40-minute mark. By now, it was obvious where the time was bleeding out. Flooded and King Sparrow were killing my pace. So I hit those segments. I ran some more practice and then called it a night. Tomorrow, we clean it up. And maybe, just maybe, we break that sub 40. Now for day 6, it is almost pretty funny, but who could have guessed? It was time for another vacation with Key. I actually had a flight later to catch that day, but in the morning I figured let's squeeze in one more run. Just one. There is no pressure, right? But somehow, in that run, everything clicked. The intro was clean, prison and sewers were smooth like butter, and every trick lined up. The movement felt crisp. It was like all the practice had finally locked in. I did lose a little time at tower, but I kept going. I kept pushing. And then King Sparrow. I held it together and closed out strong. And the timer stopped at 39 minutes on the dot. Right before heading to the airport, I had actually done it. The sub 40 was real, and just like that, the challenge was technically complete. But here's the thing. I wasn't done. When I got back from the trip, I still had one more day to push that time even lower. And with Dishonored, yeah, there was no plane practice this time around. And this time, my trip took me to Lisbon to meet up with a good friend of mine. And to pick up something that I ordered months ago with that friend. Something that was completely sold out in the Netherlands. The Switch 2. The trip itself was amazing, and I gotta say, I've been there a couple of times now, but I fell in love with Lisbon the moment I arrived for the very first time. And if any of you ever plan on visiting, let me sneak in a quick recommendation. If you're into medieval vibes, some lute music and ridiculously good food, you should check out Trobadores. It is a cozy little tavern that serves meat and some of the best food I had that whole week. It is seriously worth it. For the rest of this trip, there was not that much I could do for Dishonored. The only thing I could do was watch my runs back on the airplane, which would then help me to make mental notes and actual notes. So when I got back from the trip, I'd be ready to tighten up the run and maybe lower my PB even more. Anyway, the vacation was now over, and with one more day left, let's get back to grinding. So for day 7, the final day, I got back in touch with Candle, who by the way made me something insanely cool. My actual YouTube avatar tattooed on Corvo's hand. That was now my good luck charm going into the final stretch. Massive thanks, Candle. At first, I was a little nervous. I thought that my muscle memory might have faded over this short break. But weirdly enough, everything felt smoother and more relaxed. So I got a few runs done. They were not PBs, but hovering around the 40-minute mark yet again. And of course, there were some painful fails. Like forgetting to check if the grenade actually killed one of the targets in Golden Cat. So when I showed up to Sam at the boat, yeah, he told me to just go and finish the job. That run was over. I also tried out a new strat at Weepers, slip clipping out of bounds in the sewer section and blinking into the cutscene trigger under the pub. When it worked, it was sick, but when it didn't, I would just fall to my death. Way too risky, so at the end I scrapped it. Time was ticking away and slowly running out for this day, but then it happened. A run where everything just clicked. There were no major fails, clean movement, solid execution, and my hands were shaking at the end. But I held it together. 37 minutes and 55 seconds. This was my new PB, 1 minute and 5 seconds faster than before. I couldn't believe it. Not because of the time, but because this was proof. Proof that even if you never speedrun a game in your life, with just 7 days of focus, trial, error, and stubborn determination, you can absolutely get into it. Surely it couldn't get any better from here, right? And yeah, it did not. I squeezed in a few more runs, a couple of heartbreakingly close runs, floating around the 38-minute mark, but none of them beat that 37:55. So that was it. The clock stopped. The final day came to an end, with a final run 7 minutes and 24 seconds shy of the world record. Not bad for a week worth of grinding. Not bad at all. So after wrapping up my final run, I decided to submit it to the official Dishonored speedrun leaderboards. And to be honest, it felt a bit surreal doing it. Just 1 week ago, I didn't know a single skip or trick. And here I was, putting my name onto the same board of the players that I'd been watching tutorials from all week. And guess who ended up verifying the run? Candle. Of course, the legend who helped me start this whole challenge. And as soon as Candle gave green light, boom, I was officially on the board. Number 158 in the world for Dishonored any percent after only 7 days. It was not a top time, but I'm genuinely proud of it. Seeing that little number next to my name makes all the effort, all the failed runs, and all the Discord calls and FPS tinkering totally worth it. And hey, let's be honest, that's really what this series is all about. Tutorial Percent isn't about being perfect. It is about starting from zero, diving deep and seeing how far you can go with a little guidance and a lot of practice. And maybe just a stroke of luck. Speedrunning doesn't need to be intimidating. It is a game within a game, and you can start whenever you want. Even today. If you enjoyed this episode of Tutorial Percent, please drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments what game you would want to see next. And who knows, maybe I'll take on your suggestion. Also, if you are interested in trying out Dishonored for yourself, check the links in the description down below to join the Discord server and have access to all the helpful resources used during this run. And honestly, it is a really nice community altogether. To all of you, thanks for coming on this ride with me. I will see you in the next one.